Real stories, real people, real purpose.
Welcome, and thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Ruby Jones, and for the next 30 minutes, we'll highlight the voices, issues, and stories shaping Colorado's Front Range. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the exchange. Across Colorado this month, conversations are unfolding in many different places. In classrooms where students are discovering the power of the arts, in hospitals and research labs where new discoveries are shaping the future of healthcare, in city halls where leaders are debating housing, transportation, and economic development, and in theaters, concert halls, and sports arenas where communities come together to share stories. Welcome to the Front Range Exchange, where we explore the issues, ideas, and cultural moments shaping life across Colorado and beyond. I'm Ruby Jones, and this month, there's a lot to talk about. March is a time when several important conversations intersect. Across the United States, March is recognized as Women's History Month, a time to recognize the leadership, innovation, and resilience of women who have shaped our communities, our institutions, and our future. Here in Colorado, March is also recognized as Arts Education Month, a time to celebrate the role that arts programs play in helping students develop creativity, confidence, and cultural understanding. Arts educators across the state are highlighting how music, theater, visual arts, and creative writing programs help students build communication skills while strengthening connections between schools and communities. March is also National Nutrition Month, an annual campaign led by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, encouraging people to make informed food choices and develop healthy eating habits. And this month is also Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, which recognizes the contributions of people with developmental disabilities and promotes efforts to build more inclusive communities. Across Colorado, advocacy organizations are working to expand access to education, employment opportunities, and supportive services so that individuals with developmental disabilities can participate fully in community life. Together, these observances remind us that thriving communities depend on creativity, health, and inclusion. Of course, the conversations happening in our local communities don't exist in isolation. They are part of a much larger global story. And one of the international issues drawing attention right now involves ongoing tensions in the Middle East. Front Range Exchange is an extension of multimedia content published by Empower Media Exchange. We have a podcast, a digital publication, and we strengthen the local news ecosystem with support for children, students, and professionals. We believe in community connections, education, and inspiration, and we're building a better tomorrow, one story at a time.
International affairs.
Iran, Israel, and the United States have been engaged in a long period of strategic rivalry involving sanctions, military activity, and competing security interests. Much of the tension centers around Iran's nuclear program, missile capabilities, and its relationships with armed groups operating across the region. Israeli leaders have long argued that Iran's military development presents a significant security concern. Iranian officials maintain that their defense programs are necessary to protect national sovereignty. Over the past several years, the region has experienced periodic airstrikes, cyber operations, and proxy conflicts that have raised concerns among international observers about the potential for escalation. To understand these tensions, it helps to look at the broader historical context. Relations between Iran and the United States have been strained since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, when Iran's monarchy was overthrown and replaced by an Islamic republic. Since then, disagreements over nuclear development, economic sanctions, and regional influence have affected the relationship. The situation also carries global economic implications. A significant portion of the world's oil supply travels through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow shipping corridor between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. Any disruption to shipping in that region can affect global energy prices and international trade. For listeners trying to make sense of the situation every time you hear a headline or see a news update, one thing is very important to remember. International conflicts are not simple. They involve history, diplomacy, security concerns, and the lives of the people who live in the regions that could be affected. With that understanding, I encourage us to engage in thoughtful conversations about global events.
National policy.
While global tensions are shaping the international landscape, decisions made closer to home also influence everyday life across the United States. In Washington, lawmakers continue negotiating federal spending priorities as Congress works through the appropriations process that funds government programs and agencies. When agreements can't be reached before funding deadlines, Congress often passes temporary measures known as continuing resolutions, which allow government operations to continue while negotiations proceed. These decisions influence everything from infrastructure investment and scientific research to healthcare and education funding. Another major focus for policymakers is the increased use of artificial intelligence. In Colorado, lawmakers recently passed the Colorado Artificial Intelligence Act, one of the first comprehensive state laws addressing algorithmic decision-making systems in areas such as employment, housing, and financial services. Education policy is also evolving as millions of Americans continue navigating federal student loan repayment systems. More than 43 million borrowers in the United States carry federal student loan debt totaling more than $1.7 trillion. Recent court decisions and regulatory changes have renewed national conversations about the affordability of higher education. And with much debate over the past several years, the story continues to unfold.
Civic trends.
Beyond individual policy debates, civic trends are reshaping communities across the country. There's so many industries from healthcare and construction to manufacturing and technology that are facing workforce shortages. Governments, businesses, and educational institutions are responding with training programs and workforce development initiatives designed to prepare workers for emerging industries. There are so many opportunities in the Metro Denver area and along Colorado's Front Range to engage with organizations offering workforce development programs, especially in areas like manufacturing, construction, and energy. Philanthropic organizations are also playing an increasing role in testing new solutions in areas such as housing, education, and public health. It's an exciting time for change here in Colorado, and I think the lesson in it all is to stay flexible and think about things from an innovative perspective.
Colorado around the state.
Many of the issues we just discussed are shaping conversations right here in Colorado. In Boulder, city leaders are updating the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan, which is a long-term policy document guiding housing, transportation, and environmental planning. The update reflects city efforts to balance growth while also preserving the environmental priorities that have defined the community for decades. The city also recently saw the closing of a longtime landmark. The Dark Horse restaurant and bar served the Boulder community for more than 50 years before closing this month as redevelopment plans move forward for the site. In Fort Collins, city leaders are exploring strategies to address housing costs, including a proposal to develop affordable housing on city-owned land near downtown. Housing affordability is one of the most pressing challenges across Colorado, and it should be interesting to see what legislation comes forth to support development. In Colorado Springs, city officials are evaluating the future of a police oversight commission created in 2020. Across the Front Range, planners are continuing discussions about the proposed Front Range passenger rail, which could one day connect Fort Collins, Denver, Colorado Springs, and Pueblo. Residents are being asked to vote on the name of the express passenger rail service. 4 names in running for the train are Colorado Connector, or COCO, Front Range Express Destination, or FRED, Colorado Ranger, and RangeLink. To lend your voice and take the survey, visit ridethefrontrange.com.
Arts and culture.
Policy debates shape the framework of our communities, but culture and creativity help define their character. Colorado's arts community continues to bring powerful stories to stages and concert halls across the region. This month, jazz audiences in Denver had the opportunity to experience a performance from one of the most influential families in American jazz. The Jason Marsalis Quartet recently performed at Dazzle Denver, along with vocalist Venetia Gould. Jason Marsalis is part of the legendary Marsalis family, whose contributions to jazz include the work of Ellis Marsalis, Branford Marsalis, Wynton Marsalis, and Delfeo Marsalis. Just before his visit to Denver, I spoke with Jason about his musical journey. Here's a clip from that conversation.
But I think I'm going to do a few of my late father's compositions. And I've also embarked on this recent adventure, which is fun because it's something that surprises people. I've been into arranging the music of Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I may even bring in a couple of those songs as well.
Now, how did you embark on that adventure?
Man, let's see. The short version is I'd heard Beach Boys music as a kid, and a lot of that were the hits that people know, like the Barbara Ann's and Fun, Fun, Fun and Surfing USA and so forth. But then when I was in high school, I'd heard a song called Heroes and Villains, which is Beach Boys, but nothing like any Beach Boys I had heard. And it was some years after that I had heard the album Pet Sounds, because people were just raving about it, and it was on all of these 100 greatest albums of rock and roll lists, like at either 1 or 2. And at first I didn't really believe it, but then I heard the record and realized, oh, okay, they're right. Because it was a side of the music that isn't as well known. It was a more serious side. And then I had found out about the album Smile, which was unfinished, but then it was finished. So then I got into that. And I think it was his Brian Wilson's first solo album as a leader. There was a song on there that I heard, and I said, this could be played on a gig. Like, this is a tune that could be played and performed and soloed on. And I started to, I arranged a few of his songs, but I didn't really pursue it at the time. But it was after he had passed away last year that I said, I really should pursue this, because I'd heard a lot of his stuff throughout the years. And after that, I did a couple of songs of his in tribute to him on a show that I did. And so after that show, I decided, all right, the next time I do a show, I'm doing a whole night of just that music. So anyway, I started arranging those. And so I've arranged a whole bunch, and I'm hoping to record those in about a year.
So you have the ear, I guess. And, you mentioned your father, and you really can't talk about jazz without mentioning the Marsalis family. You come from this amazing lineage of jazz greats and jazz genius. How has that shaped your musical identity? I mean, it sounds like you are very creative when you're arranging Brian Wilson's music. How have you created your own voice from the identity and the lineage and the legacy that you come from?
Well, you have to find things that you believe in, and you have to find how is it that you want to play music. And man, that's such a involved process. But there are other things that I did learn from my family, from my father, and from my brothers. But then after a while, you start to think, well, what is something that they don't do that I could do? How is it that I can do what they did, but I can do it differently? What are some, and so I start realizing, well, wait a minute. Well, this drummer plays like this, but I can take that concept and do it this way, or I can combine different drummers' sounds, and so you start to figure out like how you can do things. And I think that's what it is. You learn things from past and from different people, but then it's, well, how do I want to do that? How do I want to approach that? And that's ultimately how you develop one's own voice.
The Front Range Exchange is made possible by listeners who support local storytelling and independent journalism across Colorado. Learn more about the work of Empower Media Exchange at empowermediaexchange.org.
Jason will be performing at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, which takes place in New Orleans from April 23rd to May 3rd. This amazing festival features headliners like the Eagles, Rod Stewart, John Baptiste, T-Pain, Earth, Wind and Fire, Trombone Shorty and Orleans Avenue, the Isley Brothers, Diane Reeves, and so many more. If you've never been to Jazz Fest, it's one to put on your bucket list for sure. Another major performing arts event arriving in Denver is Andrew Lloyd Webber's iconic musical, The Phantom of the Opera, which will play at Denver Center for the Performing Arts from March 18th through April 5th. First premiering in London in 1986, the production became the longest-running show in Broadway history. I recently spoke with Jordan Lee Gilbert, who portrays the starring Christine Daae in the touring production. Here's a moment from that conversation.
Tell me what your reaction was when you first learned that you'd be playing that role.
Oh my God. So, the entire audition process was so surreal. You know, I kind of wandered into the right place at the right time. And it was a very long audition process. I think a few months. I might have gone through 7 or 8 rounds of just auditions and callbacks and stuff. And I had my final callback, and I did some chemistry reading with our now Phantom, Isaiah Bailey, and I met him there, which was really special and something that, we look back on very fondly. And then 2 weeks later, I was actually doing yoga to try to stop thinking about this whole thing and trying to remain calm and, put out good energy. And I looked down and my phone started ringing, and it was the casting agent, Peter Van Dam. And I kind of figured, I was like, maybe this is just them letting me down really easy. And they ended up telling me that I booked the part. And I think it was a mix of hyperventilating and laughing at the same time. And then I called my entire family, and they were all, having the same reaction. But it was so surreal.
What are some of the biggest challenges you've experienced and the biggest joys while playing this role?
Honestly, it's therapeutic in a way. It's because it kind of allows you to express these things, especially as a woman, that you carry with you, frustration. And I think women are so complex, and the kind of strength that we have in us is not this one defined thing. And she experiences such a wide range of emotions. You're so right in that. And what do her relationships look like now? Navigating love in so many different ways with the Phantom and with Raoul and within herself. I would say the most challenging thing is definitely the stamina of it is tricky, but I feel so supported by our company. And we have 2 amazing past Christines with us, Trista Moldovan and Lisa Vroman, who have offered so much wisdom and support. And our team, Christine, our amazing team of understudies and our alternate, they are also just so supportive and wonderful. So, while it's challenging, I think with the help of our company, our amazing crew, it's it takes the weight off of it to the point where it just feels like you go and you have fun every single day.
If you enjoyed those clips, you can find both of the full interviews and many more on the Exchange podcast, located on YouTube at youtube.com/@jointheexchange. I speak to people from all walks of life representing various industries, and like the Front Range Exchange, the episodes feature real stories, real people, and real purpose.
Film and entertainment.
The film industry gathered this month for the Academy Awards, celebrating achievements in filmmaking across acting, directing, writing, and technical craft. There were some standout winners this year, including One Battle After Another, which won Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Film Editing, and Achievement in Casting. Sinners was another big winner, with Best Original Score, Best Cinematography, Best Original Screenplay, and Michael B. Jordan, the star of the show, winning Best Actor. Each year, the ceremony highlights a wide range of storytelling, from large-scale productions to independent films, and reflects the continuing global reach of cinema. The Colorado Dragon Boat Festival will be presented by Denver Film from March 20th through 22nd at the Sea Film Center. The festival, which is Colorado's only Asian and Asian American film festival, will be presented in partnership with Colorado Dragon Boat, and it will feature screenings, community conversations, and special events, in addition to highlighting and promoting the culture, contributions, and accomplishments of Asian and Asian Pacific American communities through film. A few weeks later, from April 10th through April 12th, Denver Film will present the Denver Silent Film Festival, which jaws back the curtain on a superb slate of silent-era masterpieces and newly restored discoveries. The festival will be a treat for both lovers of classic films and live music. To learn more, visit denverfilm.org.
Sports.
From the stage to the playing field, Colorado's sports landscape is also entering an exciting stretch of the year. The Colorado Rockies are preparing for the upcoming Major League Baseball season. Last November, the team hired Paul DePodesta as president of baseball operations. DePodesta returned to Major League Baseball after nearly a decade with the Cleveland Browns in the National Football League. In a recent interview with Major League Baseball discussing the direction of the franchise, DePodesta shared his thoughts about the team's long-term vision. And if you're a baseball lover in Colorado, you're excited to see the team turn things around after a particularly challenging last year.
Oh, it's been great so far. I think the energy's been really positive. I think among all the players, staff, I think everyone's anxious to get going, not just for spring training, but really for the whole year. We understand the challenges. We understand that people's numbers might not be as good as they would be pitching at sea level. We wanted guys who weren't focused on that. They wanted to come compete. They wanted to win. We also need to build a situation, and we tried to do this with investing in our pitching leadership, where guys come here and they get better. We're actually looking for guys to stay within themselves, but to really pay attention to those details. We've talked a lot about winning in this camp, and that winning isn't always about talent. It's about execution of the little things time and time again. And all of our guys are capable of doing that. And I really think they're starting to, buy into that. There are good bones here. There are a lot of great people here. There's a lot of really good infrastructure here. I think the reason why a lot of people wanted to come here, I think everybody was really excited about the possibilities here because of that, right? Because of the infrastructure that was already in place. So it's a matter of us, I think, really adding to that as opposed to changing a whole bunch of things. There's so much positive momentum right now organizationally in terms of the vibe, the culture, the environment. If we can keep that going through the entire year and still feel that way at the end of the year and say, boy, that was a really, really productive year, and then use that as a launching pad into 27, then I will have seen that as a very productive year. I just think we need to be more competitive and play a better brand of baseball that people can be proud of. You're not going to go out and win every night. The edges are just too skinny, at this level to win all the time. But I think if people know that going into any series, hey, they can win this year. They can win this game, and they're playing a good brand of baseball. We're catching it well, run the bases well, all the little things. I think that'll be appreciated.
In other news, Denver's newest professional soccer team has already made history. Denver Summit Football Club played its inaugural match earlier this month and is preparing for its home opener on March 28th at Empower Field at Mile High. More than 50,000 fans are expected to attend, which could set a new attendance record for the National Women's Soccer League. And in basketball, the Denver Nuggets remain firmly in the playoff race as the season moves toward the postseason. Before we move on, I'd also like to recognize Colorado athletes on the global stage. At the 2026 Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games in Milan Cortina, competitors with ties to Colorado delivered standout performances across multiple disciplines. From gold medal victories in para-ice hockey to podium finishes in skiing, snowboarding, figure skating, and ice hockey, these athletes represented Colorado and the strength of our training grounds. Their achievements reflect their individual excellence, as well as the ecosystem of coaches, facilities, and communities that produce great athletes. Congratulations to all of this year's Olympians and Paralympians representing Colorado on the world stage.
Women's History Month.
Across Colorado, organizations are marking Women's History Month with events celebrating leadership and achievement. World Denver recently held one of the nation's largest International Women's Day celebrations. The Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce held its annual State of Women in Business Luncheon, highlighting workplace equity and leadership opportunities. And the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce Associate Board held an event titled Women in Leadership: Elevate Yourself and Your Voice in the Workplace. Organizations such as Girls Inc. of Metro Denver continue to host programs focused on empowering girls through mentorship and STEM education. And on Wednesday, March 25th, the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame will celebrate changemakers with a conversation featuring inductees whose leadership continues to shape our state.
Journalism and civic media.
Many of the stories we've discussed today, from international affairs to local community events, reached the public through journalism. March also highlights the role of local media through Colorado Press Day, which recognizes the importance of journalism in supporting transparency and civic engagement. One historic institution supporting that tradition is the Denver Press Club, founded in 1867 and recognized as the oldest press club in the United States. On April 9th, which is Local News Day, the Denver Press Club and Colorado Media Project, along with Bucket List Community Cafe, are hosting an open house and fundraiser to celebrate the impact of local news. To learn more about the event, visit bucketlistcommunitycafe.com.
Let's wrap it up.
As we prepare to close this episode of the Front Range Exchange, we're reminded that the story of Colorado continues to evolve. It unfolds through policies we debate, music we share, the games we watch, and communities we build together. At Empower Media Exchange, our mission is to strengthen the local news ecosystem and amplify voices that make our communities vibrant and resilient. Because when people have access to information, storytelling, and dialogue, communities become stronger. This has been the Front Range Exchange on Metro, produced exclusively in partnership with KGNU Community Radio. I'm Ruby Jones. Thank you for listening, and remember, no matter what's going on in the world, be sure to take care of yourself and take care of each other.